Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to CTM Media, where we're changing the narrative and we're doing it with you. This episode has been powered by BBI Professional, the Black Business Initiative, leading an economic revolution. We're building a generation of Black entrepreneurs, professionals, and leaders. Learn more about the impact of BBI Professional at bbiprofessional.com. You're tuning to Season 4, Episode 4, right here with 7 Generations Black. You know what time it is. Share it out on your network, create engagement. Go on over and subscribe. Check us out on YouTube at CTN Media. Make sure you ring the bell and keep supporting independent Black media. Welcome to 7 Generations Black, Season 4, Episode 4. The topic today is the power of our culture. Of course, 7 Generations, welcome. This is a podcast powered to equip and inform you, clear your lens, and present you with a new perspective. Welcome my panel, Theo E.J. Wilson, H. Soul, Jice Johnson, LETHOL, and I'm your host, Shay. Make sure you guys go ahead and subscribe, like, and share. Welcome to 7 Generations Black. All right, the power of our culture. We're going to revisit this. We've talked about this topic, but it's time to dig in a deeper way. Having established that the Black culture has power, what are some ways that we can leverage that or even exploit the power that we have? We're going to look at ways we can do this for our own gain, and we're going to take into consideration some of the current events that happen right here in our own backyards. Let me hit you with a red pill alert. This is your last chance. After this, there's no turning back. This is your opportunity to stop listening and tune out now. If you do, well, the story ends, and you wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. However, if you take this 7 Generations red pill, here with us today, you stay in a liberatory discussion, and we show you just how deep the rabbit hole goes. Now, of course, the option is yours. Welcome to 7 Generations Black, y'all. Again, my dope panel, the guy from Shop Talking Live, Theo E.J. Wilson, the Honorable Rage Institute, Mr. Lethal, the Righteous Rage Institute. Oh, did I really just do that? The Honorable Protector Initiative. Sorry, Lethal, you're the Honorable Protector Initiative. That was good. Now the Righteous Rage Institute, Mr. H. Soul. And of course, the Black Business Initiative, Jice Johnson. All right, y'all, I know we've talked about the power of our culture, and I think there's been a lot of current events since we've talked about the power of our culture, so we can just dig right back in there. Those of you just now tuning in, share this out on your network, create engagement. We want to hear what you have to say. This is going to be a two-way conversation. This is really a conversation with our community to say, now that we've seen some events take place, how do we now leverage the power of our culture? What are some things that we learned and how powerful we are? We've literally shook whole entire elections, and we've been a part of a lot of the advertisement. But now how do we turn this around and make sure we're doing this for our personal gain? I just want to open this up. Lethal, if you could just jump in and kind of just talk about the overview of the power of our culture and how powerful it is and what we've kind of realized with 2020 being a part of that realization.
So we already know that it was us, our people, who handed a political party the Senate, for example, right? Georgia and the 2 senators that we put in office there. Then you have to look at and also talk about the fact that, you know, not only did we hand our, I guess, legislative body and the government over to a political party with regards to the Congress, but also the presidency. So right now, because of our efforts, because of the power that we possess in our culture, the federal government is controlled 2/3 by a political party that we have decided is best for us to align ourselves with for whatever reason, right? You also have to talk about and then look at it from a different perspective. The majority of white folk who went crazy and stormed the Capitol, we got to take some responsibility for that too, but in the good sense. in the good sense, because they got upset and angry because of something that we led and something that we did and threatened their power base, their power structure, and their control. You see what I'm saying? So the power of our culture drove them mad. You understand what I'm saying? The power of our culture drives, or rather is, not just the engine, but it's the entire vehicle, right? It's the engine, it's the transmission, it's the motor, it's the headlights, it's the tail lights, and so forth and so on, right? Of this country's economy, okay? And that's pretty significant. And so when we think that we're powerless, we have to really realize that we're really the movers and shakers. You know, we're more than just the spiritual consciousness of this country, of this society. You know, we are really putting some things in motion, setting some things in motion here, you know, and those are just some examples, and I'm quite sure there's going to be more, but we have to really think about this.
I see a lot of questions coming up in the chat, and I think this is definitely a conversation we're going to hit. I think one of the conversation pieces, somebody just put one up for me. Since it was our people who put them in office, talking about Biden and his campaign, where are the specific tangibles benefits from the Democratic Party? Theo, I would love for you to address what that looks like for the Democratic Party moving forward, and how do we start to form this into any type of tangibles?
Yeah, it's about what we demand, man. You know, we have a certain leverage right now that we can demand what the hell we want. Number one, I think most importantly, so what we've seen is them to at least have to come up with a plan that looks like it's talking about a Black agenda. So specifically, there's grants, there are more allotments of programs that have to do with those cross-section things that we are included on. So if you want to talk about Negroes specifically, and only Negroes are getting this specific thing, we still ain't there yet. If we're talking about programs that actually will affect us and benefit us, we definitely are there yet. And we just got to look at what that looks like in terms of the change of our narrative when it comes to reinstituting things. This is a tangible that a lot of people don't realize. Trump is about to take away all diversity and inclusion training that had to do with peeping out institutional racism, right? Mm-hmm. That's back on the table now. Why does that matter? Because if you don't have bias training, Black people getting jobs goes way down. The Bureau of Labor Statistics says 84% of jobs that are ever gotten in any institution are internal referrals. Without diversity and including training and programs like that, none of that ever gets remedied. So when you have that in hand, Black folks get more employment. When you talk about what's supposed to be coming down the pike when it comes to the bailouts and shit like that, that's supposed to be on its way. There's not a whole lot he could do with like the programs in terms of, I'm sorry, I'm getting feedback from in here. When it comes to, God damn it. I just got distracted by the baby. But what's most important is that our narrative is on the front burner, not the back burner. And the party knows that it can't do a whole hell of a lot without us. So I think when it comes to the bailouts, when it comes to employment, when it comes to making sure that we have the diversity needed to actually talk about us, then was rescinded by Biden today. Somebody says that, but I need proof of that. If it was rescinded by Biden today, like there's a lot of shit people said Biden did that he didn't do. You feel me? Biden's not.
That's an exec order, Theo. That's an exec order. He signed it today.
When did that come down the pipe?
Breaking news right here, CTN Media.
It's an exec order, man. It's an executive order that he put out.
What does it say? That is not, he's not doing diversity and inclusion training? No,
what I'm saying is the ban on it that was put in place by the last president, this current president put out an executive order taking that away. So it's coming back, in other words.
So the executive orders.
So they're including that, they're going back to saying that the federal government needs to have diversity training.
That's what I'm saying. Yes. Things like that actually do numerically impact Black people directly. In terms of Negroes, let's talk about why that don't happen too. Because I thought about that. How hard is it to say Negroes specifically, you've been harmed by racism? Negroes specifically, this is the thing that you get back because you've been harmed by racism. What's in the way of that, right? For example, homie pointed out that like Pacific, Asian and Islanders, right? They got some specific legislation this week. Why is that so hard for Black people to do? I mean, for us to do for Black people, that's a real question. And I think the only answer that is apropos for that is white insanity is still violently opposed to that. And they're navigating the violence and insanity of other white people when they specifically do some shit for us. Specifically, mo folks running up to the Capitol, specifically mo folks threatening to kill your Marjorie Taylor Greens and stuff like that. They're going to assassinate people for taking care of Black folks specifically. White insanity be the thing. So they be having to navigate that and do some intersectional shit. But I don't see the Republicans even talking about it.
So let me like tag in on that, on this right there, where you say like, why isn't this happening, right? And I think part of that is the recognition of the power of our culture, and that's why so many of these things are interlayered. And I think the power of our culture kind of ties in like a bunch of different concepts, because we've spoken before about our own internalized hate. You have Black people who don't believe Black people deserve reparations. You have Black people who don't believe that there are real issues. Like we see Black abuse happening, whether it's at the hands of police or at the hands of other people, but specifically even just thinking about the hands of police, because I think people can kind of get that. And you have Black people who say they shouldn't have, not the police shouldn't have, the Black person shouldn't have, the Black person shouldn't have talked back, the Black person should have complied. You know, there's that thought process that we have internally for ourselves that say that we're not deserving of having, you know, our wrongs righted, or even acknowledgement by a lot of Black folks that we have been wronged. And so it pushes white America to not have to acknowledge it, you know, where in a certain sense, obviously this past summer, they have had to acknowledge it, but even then, it's like, in what ways are they acknowledging, right? So we've seen a lot of symbolism. We haven't seen a lot of structural change. And so to somebody's point that talked about, you know, the Lift Every Voice plan, which we, you know, started talking about a couple of weeks ago, like that plan is not specific to the Black community. If you go and compare Biden's plan for the brown community and Biden's plan for the Black community, like there's no specificity there almost at all. And so, you know, you're right. There are these other classifications that are able to get specific legislation that is addressed to them, and the Black community is not. And the Black community doesn't feel outraged about that. Like, we're just not outraged.
And with us not being
outraged, more and more outraged all the time. Like, I don't resist when people like Shaka and Jesse be like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm sorry, they be like, where's our specific shit? I think that's a valid question.
Yeah.
I think that the resistance to it is violent white racism that will be directed toward white people if they do that. And I think they don't even understand that consciously. You see what I'm saying? But I think the outrage been growing, or else Ice Cube wouldn't have the platform to say what he said. And he has some valid points.
So when we're talking about the power of our culture, how do we now shift the dynamic? When we say we've been left out of specific policy that's going to really make us go forward. Yet we talk about building up Blacks in the economic state. We look at the pandemic and the businesses we lost. How do we take back that power and pay it to a place where we're now surviving the Black businesses, the Black professionals? How do we do that?
So here's the thing, right? And I think we've said this enough times on the podcast. It's going to take individuals, right? We can't go from the macro to the micro. We have to go from the micro to the macro, right? And individuals have to step up. And individuals have to realize that they are a part of a larger body, okay? Whether they want to benefit, whether they want to participate or not is irrelevant. Because at the end of the day, right, when the work gets done and the benefits are starting to be reaped and sold, they're going to capitalize off of it. They're going to be included in that. You understand what I'm saying? White individuals, right, who subscribe to a violent ideology with regards to advancing their own people's causes and position, they don't do it just for the white folk that are down with them. They do it for all. They do it for their entire race. You understand what I'm saying? And part of the problem that we have in our community is too many of us identify first by other categories as opposed to what we are. And that is, we are Black people. We are Black diaspora. We are descendants of Africans, like it or not. You understand what I'm saying? And when you identify yourself first, let's say by your gender or your sexual preference or some other characterizing identifier, right? You hurt us as a people because you divide us, because you weaken us in our position. You understand what I'm saying? We have to be unified. And that unity cannot start at the macro level. It has to start at the micro level, at the individual level. It has to. And so when we ask the questions about what needs to be done, the first thing that needs to happen is enough of us need to understand and realize that we are in this together, period. And if we are divided, it's easier for us to be conquered. That's it. That's the first step.
That's step number one. You guys are tuned in to episode 4, season 4 with the Black, 7 Generations Black. Do me a favor, share this out right now on your network. Going over to YouTube. Make sure you hit the bell. Support independent Black media. We appreciate you guys keeping us up and going. Subscribe, like, share. This is for the community engagement. We're talking about the power of our culture. We're revisiting this as we're looking at the national elections, the siege of the Capitol, the pandemic, the economic downturn. We're really just trying to figure out how do we now leverage our power? How do we come together collectively? H Soul, when you think about all the events that happen and where we are as a culture, what are our next steps to really say collectively we're moving forward? Or do we just need to leave the collective part out and individually move forward and then come back together? What do we do? How do we meet people where they're at to go forward? What happens next?
So first and foremost, I think that we as Black people are just highly distracted. We're highly distracted. And then I'll use this quote a Black woman gave me yesterday. She says that it is not Black people's responsibility to save a dying system. And I will finish up that intro by also stating that I'm really feeling like the Nation of Islam right now on all this shit, to be honest with you. I'm really, the Nation of Islam does not allow its members, its participants to engage and vote in politics. And at first, I felt some type of way about it, but I the amount of eggs that Black people place in these baskets is very, very, very concerning for me in that regards, right? Very, very concerning for me. And, yeah, I would much rather us see, to Lethal's point, I would much rather us see really us to focus our time and energy. And I'm gonna just say this, because maybe it's because it's at the end of the day and it's a Tuesday. I would really rather us just focus on us for fucking once. Just focus on us. Like, fuck sports in the NBA and NFL and Magic City and Hollywood, and just hit the pause button on all that shit and give us 365 days just to focus on what can.
Stop right there, because I think you're in a genius space. Because we're looking at value, we're looking at mindset, we're looking at what do people even address. When you say focus on us, what does that even look like? What should we be focusing on?
Well, the first thing that I think we have to do is this: you walked into an emergency room, you would have to do. I think we need to do triage on the Black community in regards to where are we, what is our deepest, most treacherous injury that we have to ourselves as a people. Like, to do a very clear assessment of what that is, right? And so if that's drugs, then we should look at that. If that's abuse, then we should look at that. And then here's the thing: we have all the healers, we have all the scientists, we have all the social scientists necessary in order to fix and engage in all of those whatever is ailing us. But we have to call a spade a spade. If it's black on black violence, address it. If it's structural violence with the police, address it. If it's domestic violence, address it, and just put our energy towards where we're bleeding the most as far as our own energy. I think this other stuff just has us so distracted, and we already have so little energy that so many of our people are just in a space of survival, that by the time we start trying to figure out what the hell is going on in Washington, D.C., we're just out of our league. We're showing up to a gunfight with toothpicks, right? And so if we really just focused on what would it look like to focus on Black businesses in our localities for 365 days, like, yes, I know the Knicks are playing. Yes, the Nuggets are my favorite team. I'm not fucking with that just for this year. I'm focusing on Black businesses. I'm focused on entrepreneurship. I'm focusing on running a damn lap right around my block and not passing the hell out. I'm working on cleaning up my diet. I'm working just engaging in that. And so that's yeah. Someone
I mean,
saying,
not that I don't agree with you. I feel like from where we are, and I think this is the hard part about how we come together, right? Is I feel like it's not a practical thing that we can do, right? Because even when you say like, what's the thing that's most affecting us? The two things that I think are most affecting us are also layered. One is economics and one is mental health. And that mental health piece obviously affects so much else. Like if we were to, drive in and attack that mental health piece, I think that we could begin to recognize how harmful it is that we value entertainment over education. I think we could realize how harmful it is with other issues of abuse. I think we could begin to unpack the internalized racism that we see that does affect us in all these other spaces, to include economics. But one is you have to have the economics to be able to undergird that. And the economic piece is so crucial because it goes, it loops back around.
Do we though? I don't know. We need that. Listen, we didn't need economics to start hip hop, and that shit took over the world. So I think that sometimes,
but it didn't just take over the world, and I think sometimes that's where we forget, right? It's like we took over local movements, right? We had local things that were happening, but who spread it worldwide? White money.
We don't need it to be worldwide, though. All we needed is
okay. Well, even
we needed it in LA. We needed it in
what
Chicago.
was happening over in LA was, and what was happening over in New York. How these movements started coming together and creating a hip hop movement. White money funded that. Now, the unfortunate part about that is white money funded it, and then also white money turned it against our own best interest. So we end up getting into this position over and over and over again because we don't have the dollars to sustain our own movements. So when it comes to me feeding my family or me worried about the Black community and how we see each other as a holistic unit, then we don't worry about that, right? We throw the Black community under the bus.
So here's the problem with that carrying that forward is that you're not going to change the mindset around money until you change people's mindsets, period, about the fact that there's an issue. So you're not going to get somebody to buy Black until you heal whatever the European inside of them that makes them not buy Black. So
I agree with that.
If we continue to make the solution dead white people and having access to dead white people on paper, then our liberation is going.
Yeah, but it's not just access to dead white people, right? Because the actual physical dollars are a tool, but also those tools control access to the resources, right? And then also part of that, and this ties back into the mental health, like we literally, we clown on Mexicans for all being, living together, right? I talk all the time about being roommates, living together, bringing everybody in, saving money. We won't even do that. You literally got Black folks who will be like, I'll be homeless before I have a roommate. I mean, it is an interesting concept of I need my own space. I can't be around other folks, right? And the fact that we can't be around each other in intimate spaces is also an issue. But in that space, if you want to take it back to say Reconstruction, I would be willing to bet that they were able to pile 2 and 3 families in a home as needed in order to sustain and get moving. So when we look at other socioeconomic groups that have struggled in this space, and we see that the brown community is actually closing gaps in several places, they also are able to get along together in a space. And I think sometimes we romanticize what that looks like. It's not that they're all happy-go-lucky, you know, loving on each other. It's that they have put that aside in order for them to get ahead. So they will pile 2, 3, 4 families in a home, and they will stack up their dollars, and they will go on and buy the next property, and they will generate those things. It doesn't just happen in the brown community, it happens in the Asian community, and it was happening in the Jewish community, and the Jewish community took off. The Jewish community has the benefit of being able to pass as white, but the Jewish community also started off in that space of we all are coming together, we're all going to grow.
So you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right, Jice, but you're actually making my point. Is that before they make that money, they have made the decision that we're all going to live together. It don't take no money to make that decision, is my point. They made the decision that we're all going to live together. They made the decision that we're all going to work together first. They made the decision that we're going to collectively pool our resources together. That didn't require money in order to do that, for them to do that. It required just the mindset that they're going to...
No.
But also it's a combination, because those other communities also have ties back to other countries, and also a lot of them have been repaired. We know the Japanese community has been repaired. We know the Jewish community has been repaired by dollars that didn't even cause them harm.
Well, hold on. How much were Jewish people were getting $238 a month? Let us.
That's fine.
No, Jewish people. Hold on, guys.
They were getting $238 a month.
Let's not get distracted and get down into the weeds of it, right? At the end of the day, the bottom line is all these other groups that we're talking about received something from somewhere, and that something they received was a resource that helped them decide to be who they are today.
And so can we do it with or without it? Are we saying if we don't get reparations that we ain't gonna make it?
I'm not talking about reparations, bro. I'm
talking about reparations as one aspect.
So that's the thing. We're talking about two different things: reparations or not reparations. But what we're ultimately talking about, those who just now tuned in, is the power of our culture. We're revisiting what it looks like to really use our power and leverage it. And we don't know if this is going to be collective, because I think that's one thing, is we're trying to figure out what this mindset even looks like to have collective and group economics, because we haven't been known as a culture to even really move on that level. What is this?
We have though. So here's the thing: Black people, and nobody can dispute this. Black people walked off the plantation in a more unified, a more clarity on who the enemy was, and a more self-conscious position than we stand in 2021. And we didn't have no money when we walked off the plantation. We had a mindset and an experience that told us that we better get our shit together. We didn't have that. We didn't have the illusions of kumbaya. We didn't have the illusions of the Democratic Republican Party.
Yes,
no, we did not.
Yes, we did.
We did not.
What are you talking about?
No, we did not. No, we did not. No, we did not.
What are you talking about?
I just said what I'm talking about. We did not walk off the plantation with the mindset that we're Republicans and Democrats. That did not happen.
We walked off.
We didn't walk off with
that mindset. So when that mindset shifted,
we walked off the plantation with the mindset that we were Republicans and we were hailing the Republican Party under Lincoln. Yes, we did. And then they turned it back on us in 1876. That happened.
We did not. What I'm saying is we did not walk off the plantation. Let me say this. Let me say this very clearly. We did not walk off the plantation with the understanding that the undergirding of white people and what they were going to give us or not give us was going to keep us distracted from working on ourselves. We walked off understanding that we had to be self-sufficient and that we were our brother's keeper.
I strongly disagree with that, though. I honestly strongly disagree with that, because there were people in the same sense that we have right now. Is there are people that did not, they're not a couple folks, a lot of folks never wanted to leave the plantation. It's like, right. I know what to expect here, right? So now I might be free, but I still need to eat. I still need to be housed. And so how can I stay here and do that here?
Yeah, but that wasn't about white people. That was about their own survival.
But right? and that's what it's still about. And that's what it's still about.
Right.
Because so I agree with you. And I believe that the Nation of Islam also agrees with you, which is why you listen to these brothers talk about carving out our own land, our own nation in the southern states and just letting that be that. And I think that we're spinning our wheels here. And what the problem is that we've been traumatized out of almost every direction towards freedom. Literally, we tried integration, we tried separation, you feel me? Like, we tried all of these things. And it's like the cycle of racism keeps on happening to us. I talk about this in my speeches. America giveth and America taketh away, right? Right. Everybody knows that at the end of Reconstruction, shit was starting to look equal. And then the betrayal of 1877, withdrawing the Northern troops from the South, and the beginning of Jim Crow. And then we get the civil rights movement, shit started looking good. And then we get the fucking war on drugs and the fucking policies, 3 strikes policies. You can blame Biden for that. You can blame Reagan for that. It's all part of the same white supremacist animal. I understand that. Black folks have aligned themselves with whoever is advantageous and who's talking our shit. What in 1876, the Republicans was talking our shit. I mean, prior to that, they was talking our shit. Okay, the Democrats are talking our shit now. That's why we align with them. It's not difficult to figure out why we keep going where we're going. Why we can't get ahead is another thing. And I think that what Soul is saying is that nobody really doubted that like violent white supremacy was going to be a problem, regardless of which political party they wanted to affiliate with, even though there were some people who like the best route for me to navigate violent white supremacy is to stay on my ass on this plantation. Other black people like the best way to navigate violent white supremacy is to fucking take this blacksmithing skill I have and start a business in my community, right? But nobody disagreed that you could get lynched at any moment. See what I'm saying? And I think that's what he's saying. We got to figure out the facts, right? America views our unity as a cancer, and it sends in its immune system, which is law enforcement, FBI, CIA, COINTELPRO, assassinations, hitmen, propaganda, crack, you name it, right? Fucking polluting hip hop. So let's understand that within the body politic of America, our unity is a cancer. That's why they use all means of the state and corporate powers to distract us from being unified. So with that sense, it's reparation or separation. I've been saying this for the longest time. Ultimately, this is an abusive relationship. Nobody here will disagree with that. This is a relationship that says either we can, in this place right now, you need to focus fully. This is why I don't all the way disagree with cats like Jesse and Ice Cube. I don't all the way disagree with them. I was just talking about the urgency of the moment. And frankly, Trump proved me right for voting for Biden on January 6th, and I have no qualms about that. But what I will say is this. That's not the final solution. Them brothers have been saying that. No black man has ever voted his way into freedom. Brothers who feel that way, I agree. So the long-term thing is, can we use the power of our culture to turn into Tina Turner and get away from fucking Ike in this situation?
So that's a good question. How many people on this panel think that America is going to give black people reparations? I'm just wondering.
I don't think anyone's going to raise their hand.
Not one. Nobody. Wait,
Jice,
I think black people push truly for reparations that we could, and I do think that the movement that now they're on stuff that they have their own whatever's right, but I think that there are like people like Tariq Nasheed with the FBA movement, and I think people like Antonio Moore with the ADOS movement, they are getting really clear about legislation. And I think the key piece that's missing in this is that we're not grooming leaders. And so we keep getting stuck with the ones that we have. And how long is it going to take to groom enough leaders to come up in the system, and infiltrate what that looks like? I don't know. I don't know if we'll see it in this generation or even in our next generation. But I do believe that if we could continue to push that narrative of the fact that we are owed these reparations and show that clear, timeline, right? And I think this particular moment, like 2020, could have set up a whole nother wave of that, because in 2020, first of all, it's been well documented.
Yes, you think the American government is going to cut a check of trillions of dollars to black people?
But I think this is what I think. I think that there are movements that are mobilizing black people. And if those movements could sustain, I do believe that we could have enough black leverage to push this legislatively. The second thing is that is the drawback where I'm not seeing yet is we're not grooming leaders in that space. So we're mobilizing people, but we're not grooming leaders in that space. But the third thing is that this past year, what the American people have saw and what Black people have seen is that the government can cut $1 trillion checks when and if they should feel the need to, and at the same time, we've seen that there are now new studies by much larger corporations, Citigroup, McKinsey, these global corporations that are saying that these disparities are huge, and what's needed to cover down on the gap is an infusion of cash. So now,
let me ask you a question before you go into that. So is that what we should be using the power of our cultures in to all get behind the legislation? Because if we're saying we have leverage, we have to figure out where we
No,
where's the leverage coming from the power of our culture?
No, enough. Let's stop. Let's pause for a second. Let's pause.
I thought on that, but go ahead.
We are not using the greatest part of our power and asset that we have, and that is Black dollars. We are not using that. America is a capitalist society. I told you before, I told us before, it cares about money. Period. Right? That's what it cares about. And we are not doing anything with regards to the practice of group economics to cause harm to other people's businesses outside of our own community. If we can't drive the extra 20 minutes to support a Black business, if we can't sustain and have a conversation with a Black business owner whose customer service may be some shit, if we can't do those little, small, tangible things that keep Black dollars in the Black community supporting Black agendas and Black issues, then we are not going to advance any of our purpose and causes, period. We have to look internally and move with that in mind.
That's it.
Until we start doing that, the American economy is not going to be hurt. And as long as the American economy is not hurt by something that we're doing, we are going to stay ignored. So after we do that, hold on, H. After we do that, then we move from a political perspective. After we do that, then we move from a political perspective, because they're going to want us to stop doing what it is we are doing. And then we begin the conversation from a political perspective. We go out there, as Dr. Claude Anderson has been saying for decades, we go out there and we buy, we purchase legally politicians. Right now, we have not purchased legally, we have not bought legally a politician. We've just given them our votes for free, period. There is a way to do this. And if anyone out there thinks you can just pick up a gun without any training, without any experience, and hold territory, you're a fool. And you will end up getting your people killed, period. There's a way to do it.
I agree with you.
From a military strategic perspective, there is a way to do it.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%.
Society, you have to start with the money. And since we are the engine that drive this economy, shut the fucking engine down.
I agree 100%. And I'm seeing these people in the chat room, and this is the why I think, and this is why I take Homebridge with Jice's message sometimes. It's because you then get people who are like, yo, give me my $3,000 check. Yo, all we need is that reparations money. And I love how Dave Chappelle did a whole skit on if we got reparations, what Black people would do with reparations. But what you're talking about, Lethal, is reparations mixed with the mind. If we don't have the mindset, you could give us $80 billion, and Black folks will have that shit on McDonald's. And so what's required is exactly what you're saying, Lethal, is that we fortify the mindset first. And with that mindset, then we can build when we're looking inside. But people talking about, yo, the Jews got $3,000. Well, yeah, the Jews think of themselves as a tribe. They see themselves as each other's brothers' keepers.
But I'm sorry.
The thing is that there's a unity that exists amongst Jewish people, right? There's shit that you cannot do. Or listen, Jewish people are not even allowed to charge each other interest. So that's how tied to each other they see each other as family.
Guess what? You can't even speak bad about a Jewish person and not have penalties of getting canceled in this society.
Period. You see what happened to Jesse Jackson?
This goes back to where I started off. I said mental health and economics, but I do think that they're tied together because there was not a campaign essentially pushed on breaking the mind of the Jewish people. You know, Hitler didn't care about breaking the mind of Jewish people. His plan was to exterminate them. Because the white community's plan for Black people in America was not to exterminate us. The plan was actually to utilize us as free labor going forward. We were building out not even a labor class. We were building out the labor, right? And so the difference was break our minds and keep our bodies intact. And their thing was, kill them. They're dead.
That's a good argument.
Their mindset wasn't broken, and ours has been broken. I think we have to acknowledge that. And then in that space, they were also given dollars to repair, and we were not given dollars even to help work on our mental health, right? And so then it does tie back into how the economics in this country works. So then someone put up there, reparations is not necessarily always just money. And that's completely accurate, because even in the way that white America built its wealth, they were not cut a check. They were given access to housing. They were given access to government contracts. They were given access to free education. There's all these things that they didn't have to actually put money into. And then America was built on that. Like, think about the fact that we.
So you think, Jice, that America has, that we at, and I'm trying to wrap my head around this because I don't know where you're getting this from. You think that America will cut a check to Black people if we can exert enough influence on these devils? I'm sorry, I just said that.
While you're doing that, can anyone share how much money we're talking about exactly of the Black population held out their support of other businesses?
Hold on. Let me put this out there. I'm gonna put this out there again, right? And this is for Jojo P, who asked the question, right? There has been a study done by Citigroup over the past 20 years due to anti-Black hatred, anti-Black racism, not anti-minority, anti-people of color, right? Black people.
Let's put their question back there.
The country, the economy lost over a 20-year period $16 trillion. And if the country doesn't reverse its course, then over the next 5 years, it stands to lose another $5 trillion. That's $1 trillion a year. We as Black people are the engine that drives this economy. So the notional idea that we don't have power to effect change is wrong if you look at it from the perspective of economics and that this society is a capitalist society. That's all I'm saying. And to Jice's point, right, we can bring about what Jice is talking about, but we have to take a definitive, deliberate, prolonged action. And that prolonged action worked in Montgomery with the bus boycott. We shut that shit down. And all I am proposing is to get to Jice's points, right, about what it is we can get in return from the government, right, from the country, from the society, from the dominant white majority, which controls just about everything, right, is we have to take a specific, deliberate action. And it requires us to have to sacrifice for an extended length period of time, right? For example, there is nothing that the dominant white majority can do to me that would stop me from using my SUV to pick up and transport brothers and sisters to work instead of them using the white dominated majority's fucking transportation system. There's nothing stopping me from doing that. You understand what I'm saying? There's nothing stopping me from preparing some meals and helping to feed.
So, Lethal, do you think that we will make it if we don't get cut a check? I guess that's the question I'm making.
That's a great question. That's Roman out there.
Dr. Claude Anderson says that
All right.
Anderson says that we will be regulated to a permanent underclass, and I would say that we're almost there. So will we make it? Yes. Will we strive? No. And I think
so. Unless the United States government cuts us a check, we are not going to make it as a people. Is what we're saying here.
It's not even just like, I think that we have to recognize how much is what, right? So even when we say that the Black community has 1.2, 1.3, 1.5, 1.7, whatever the fuck number that people want to make up, and I say make up because one, we cannot actually directly definitively point back to where that number came up, and I have real problems with that number being continued to be pushed out there in terms of what our spending power actually means. And I'm gonna circle back around this, but I think just 2 quick points about what that looks like. When you get a student loan, that's counted as your spending power, but you can't spend a student loan anywhere but in the school. You do not have power to use it for a home or power to build your business. Same thing when you get a car loan. We'll go and get a car loan that has to be used to purchase a car, but that's counted towards our spending power. So when we talk about the spending power that we have spending power that we can't direct anywhere but right back into white society. We have no place or agency over where we spend it. So we have to think about what that 1.234.7 trillion dollars looks like. But in addition to that, we need to know what a drop in the bucket that is. There are 3 major banks in this country. The 3 big banks are Chase, JP Morgan Chase, Bank of America, and Wells Fargo. Those are the 3 like larger banks that are here, right? Bank of America alone has more under assets than the entire Black community has in their spending power. And that's one of 3. We are talking about pennies. We're talking about a government that popped out a couple of $1 trillion without blinking. We have 1.753 whatever $1 trillion spending power, period. So when people are saying that we don't have that same type of leverage that we keep saying or asserting that we do have some leverage, but only in certain places. We can shut down the hair industry. We can shut down the beauty industry. We're not shutting down the auto industry. We're not shutting down any manufacturing. We're not shutting down transportation. There's nowhere where there are lots of places where we don't have that type of power, and we certainly don't have it if we're not fully 100% concentrating it.
Hey, yo, let me piggyback on what you said. So Forbes magazine, 2017 article released says that we are set to be broke by the year 2050. Period. Yeah. Zero net worth.
And this pandemic might have jumped it.
And this pandemic very much does expedite that date. We might be looking at 2035, right? And so that's 14 years from now. It's when my daughter's 14, right? That it could be possible that our country, that our nation a Black nation has zero net worth. And so what I'm saying is that that costs lives when the dollars and cents. And Claude Anderson laid this out very, very clearly. If you don't have dollars and cents, you can't leverage municipal representation, which means you can't leverage the police, which means you can't get like shit like, food deserts taken care of, which means y'all niggas starve or like die of diabetes or some shit. Like it all adds up. You see what I'm saying? So like realistically, reparations or separation is a full bit of survival. Now, in the meantime, I still got white friends, white folks I work with, motherfuckers that I love, right? In fact, I did my DNA on Ancestry DNA. They keep showing me all these white relatives I have. It's fucking weird, right? My great-grandfather. Right?
It ain't weird.
Right. So, that's the consequences of rape and all sorts of shit, right? The bottom line is that if this doesn't happen, Africa taught me, like when I went there, that they can live without 47 million Negroes who can't get it together. And that's a fucking painful thing because we got this Americanism shit where we're used to being the life of the party because America is the game everybody's trying to get into. But the fact is you niggas can't go extinct. A race already damn near went extinct here before. See? And so
are you saying, Theo, and I just want to wrap my head around this. Yeah. Are we actually saying that unless white supremacy cuts us a check, that we are doomed?
Yes, and it's a fucked up thing to admit, but like we have to actually, we have to.
I just wanted to hear it
because
there's doomed and there's underclass. Right? There's doomed and there's underclass. Like, would we be doomed to be an underclass? I absolutely believe we would be doomed to be an underclass. All the studies show that.
Let me finish my point, please. Let me finish my point. Let me finish my
Theo.
point. Because what happens is this eventually will be a permanent underclass, but it does lead to death in long term. Like it could take 200 years, but that's nothing in the blink of an eye. You know what I'm saying? And so will the entire black race globally go extinct? Far from it. Africans are on the continent. They got their struggles, especially with China and shit like that, but they have strength in numbers. They have the highest birth rate on the planet, the youngest population on the planet, demographically speaking. They are in what's called a demographic summer. They gonna make it. It might be shitty, but they're gonna make it, right? Mm-hmm. The issue is that we need to join our majority. And that doesn't mean that like I hate white people. I got white folks I fucks with the long way for real. I got white friends and family I fucks with the long way for real.
We know.
In terms of collective. Not like that, you nasty bastard.
Knock it off, everybody. Right. I want to ask you some questions, y'all.
Wrong. Lethal. Come on, man.
Go ahead, finish up, Theo. Knock it off. Go ahead, Theo. Finish up.
But in the long run, that's what it looks like. So I'm going to get mine in this lifetime the best way that I can and educate my folks because I got to be able to have something to contribute in order, like, you feel me? But that's the long-term solution, and we got to be honest with you. So yeah, the answer is kind of we're already.
I just wanted to hear somebody say it out loud that unless Massa,
it's sad, but it's true. Right.
No.
That weird move.
I statement like that, but what I am gonna do is I'm gonna get this thing called a mindset moment going. We do this every time on 7 Generations Black. It's time for our mindset moment. We're shifting our community. We're talking about this from a 7 generational lens. How do we build out 7 generational thought process that will benefit our children's children? So this is time for your mindset moment shift as we talk about the power of our culture and what it really looks like. To use the power, whether that is collectively, whether that's individually. I think you can see we have all different perspectives of how do we really come together. One of the people in our audience asked, how do we get 100% concentrated? How do we all get on cue? Somebody else said, how do we get on code? Is there code? Is it even realistic for us to do this all together? I think there's so many things. So I just ask you in your mindset moment that you touch this from a 7 generational lens on how you see the power of our culture.
Wait. If you are tuned in right now, hit the thumbs up button. Hit the like button. Go ahead and hit it. It costs you nothing, although you can also super chat us up because this is independent Black media and we want to keep supporting this channel. But it costs you nothing at all to hit the thumbs up. Go ahead and hit the thumbs up because I only see a few thumbs up, but I see a lot of engagement in the chat and it would do us,
the chat is booming. Thank you for this engagement.
I'm just asking if you would go ahead and hit the thumbs up.
I love that. Hit the thumbs up, y'all. Keep supporting independent Black media. Like you said, hit the thumbs up. And the chat is booming, so we appreciate all your engagement. Keep it coming. Tell a friend about us. It's time for our mindset moment. I'm going to go ahead and start off with you, H. Soul.
Yes, there was a book that I read back in the 90s called The Psychopathic Racial Personality. And in this book, it talks about exactly the beast that we're dealing with. And when I said the devil, I meant that is in really... As clear term, no society has committed the atrocities that this society has committed, and that's just hands down. The idea that we need somebody with a psychopathic personality to cut us a check in order for our survival is absolutely runs against the grain of what I truly believe in the core of my being. Although I understand the arguments that are being made around where that lands up. But if we're looking for somebody with a psychopathic personality, if we're looking for Jeffrey Dahmer to serve us a dinner dish that ain't gonna have one of us up in it, then I think that we are completely pressured, no pressure, whatever. So I think that it's really incumbent upon us. And now in that sense, it makes Theo's argument around, it may be time for us to bounce to Africa, set up stake there, if that's what we believe, and set up stake there and gamble on that one, because I've been around these white folks for 50 years.
Woo.
I got white friends. I got white allies and accomplices. And and if they're watching here, it is what it is. I am not betting my future, my grandchildren's future on collective white psyche ever pivoting and giving up its privilege for Black people. That's why they ran here from Europe in the first place. There would be no need for their existence. I think they'd hit the button on all this shit before they let to see Black people run this planet again.
That's my guy, H. So the Righteous Rage Institute. We appreciate you. Let's get this perspective. I'm gonna go ahead to my girl Jice Johnson. The power of our culture. As we revisit this, we look at this from the current events to scoping this in a 7-generational lens. What is your mindset moment?
I think the mindset moment is to recognize that we do have power, and whether that, do I have any expectation that it will be given up? No, but we do have power in order to leverage and maneuver. And I think the more that we recognize our own power, it can allow us to build agency, whether that is us practicing cooperative economics, which we should, whether that is, building collectively, which we should, whether that is really putting significant political pressure on this country, which we also should, but also we may have in this last election given up that ability going forward with the current plan that the Biden-Harris administration has. So I think that's important for us to recognize that our survival as a socioeconomic group, if that is important to you as a socioeconomic group, to think about your children, we're going to have to acknowledge that we need to have a level of unity. Are you saging me?
No, I'm saging the whole space. It ain't just.
Oh, no mindset moment. No.
Like I weren't saging.
Yeah, we got crystals. We put it all on this.
It was everybody.
That's my mindset moment, y'all.
Thank you, guys. Black Business Initiative, we appreciate you, Jice Johnson. All right, I'm going to go to my guy, Theo E.J. Wilson. As we look at this from a 7-generational lens and we give that new perspective, what is your mindset moment, the power of our culture as we revisit it? How do we empower our culture for the next steps?
Most powerful weapon anybody could have is an accurate assessment of the situation. That's it.
Boom.
And so our culture needs to cultivate the ability to see it and to face it as stark and fucked up as it is. I don't want 7 generations from now, my family to be stuck in survival mode, fighting the same battles that I'm fighting today. And we have to figure out what that looks like on the grand scheme of things and use our culture to make it cool, to make it dope, to make it fucking fly, whatever the fuck you want to call it, to do the things that are going to survive based on accurately assessing the situation that we're in right now. I'm not going to pretend that because I've got a big old pride ego that there's part of my fucking culture that's not ass up getting fucked by the system and will not stop, and they're bleeding to death right now, and it affects me. My pride makes me want to actually fight and kill and do shit like that. So looking at my resources, culture is cultivation. How do we cultivate a mass mindset, a warrior spirit, self-reliance, and unity to make sure that this never happens again? Now, I believe Black folks are punching above our weight when it comes to our numbers in this country. We really, really, really are. Know that you have the power. Whatever we need to do, I will say this, we have the power to do. Whatever we need to do, and I mean intrinsically, it may not look financial, it may not look military.
I'm with that.
Right now, intrinsically, we have the power to do what we need to do. But we better figure out what the fuck it is and do it now.
Yeah.
It was Shop Talk Life, Theo E.J. Wilson. That was a mindset moment. We appreciate that. Man, we're talking about the power of our culture. Whew. All right, the guy who started this off, I'm going to let you wrap your mindset moment around this thing, the power of our culture. You've heard your panel members. I think there's been so many dope perspectives. How do we wrap this up in a bow for how do we revisit this and really empower our 7-generational lens viewers, watchers, listeners? What do we tell them?
Y'all already know where I'm about to go with this. At least you should know if you've been paying attention for the past, I don't know, almost 25, 30 episodes. But instead of putting at the end, I'm going to put it at the beginning. We some arrogant ass people. And we're not kings and queens, so stop acting like it. Stop talking like it. Our ancestors were kings and queens. We're not, right? And the reason why I say that is because it's very simple, okay? In order to do what needs to be done, it requires sacrifice. It requires sacrifice, and sacrifice requires work, okay? As I said before, one of our earlier episodes, that there is nothing that the dominant white majority can do to me or say to me that would prevent me from acting as a mature Black man and going and sitting down and having a conversation with Theo or Soul if I had a problem with them. I don't have to see these brothers and want to cut their throats. There is nothing that the dominant majority can do to me that would make me, as a mature Black man, not want to help my sister Jice or help my sister Shay or help any other Black woman or any other Black man on this planet, period. There is nothing that they can do to me that would make me not want to love my own first, period.
That's the word.
You understand what I'm saying? And so we have to understand that we need some introspection and we need to focus in on ourselves. And we need to stop trying to appease and appeal and trying to be accepted and just come to grips with the understanding and the wisdom that, you know what, we're never going to be accepted. So let's stop trying to stop it. Like, give it a break. Give it a break already, okay? If you are out there and you are a Black man, a Black woman, and you have a vehicle and you know that one of your Black brothers and sisters, neighbors does not, and they need help to getting from point A to point B, give them a ride, okay? Take money out of the white-dominated transportation system. Take that money out of there, okay? If you know that you have some access to freshly grown vegetables and other produce, share it. Don't let your brothers and sisters go to the Whole Foods and the Walmarts and all these other stores when you have and you can share. Because see, you have a responsibility, and a responsibility is nothing more than an ability to respond. That's it. And if you have the ability to respond, then respond appropriately. Help your people out. Help us out. Because the only way we get from point A to point B is if we all come together. So to the sister, Adorable Mitchell, and her question about how do we get 100% concentrated, unfortunately, we need motivation. And as time has shown us, as history has shown us, that motivation comes with Black death. That's when the motivation comes. You hear me what I'm saying, Shay? It comes.
Yeah, that's real.
So not enough of us are suffering, obviously. Not enough of us are dying, obviously. Not enough Black women are being beat up in Harlem by Black men, obviously.
Oh my.
Not enough. So more of us need to get our asses kicked by our own people and by our enemies. Well, I won't call them, I call them competitors. Obviously, not enough of us are dying. Not enough of us are sick. Not enough of us being left behind. Not enough of us. Because history has shown that we only fucking respond when we got flips in our ass and knees on our necks.
That's
Right.
problem.
Acting like a kid.
Yeah, we can do better. Come on, people.
Understand something. Understand something. I'm gonna say this, and I'm gonna say this every fucking week until we see some change. We may be descended from kings and queens, but we are not acting as if we are. We are just wasting them. And so, for a 7-generational perspective, from a 7-generational perspective, if you don't want your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren, and so forth and so on, generations to come, to end up having to sacrifice because your sorry, selfish asses could not sacrifice, then you better get up off your ass and do something and start helping each other out.
Do something about it. This is 7 Generations Black, y'all. You tune in to episode 4, season 4. Shout out to everybody super chatting us up. We see you, East Oakland in the building, Dante Johnson. Y'all keep supporting independent Black media. It's not too late to ring the bell and show your support. We appreciate it each and every time that you create engagement with us. Again, this episode has been powered by the Black Business Initiative, the Black Economic Revolution. Check them out at bbiprofessional.com. Make sure you tune in each and every Tuesday where we have this liberatory discussion right here with 7 Generations Black with my phenomenal cast. Until next time, remember, the new Black code, just be Black, buy Black, think Black. Let's really practice what group economics looks like. Until next time, keep hustling for your 7 Generations Black. We love you. Peace and love. CTN Media, where we're changing the narrative with you.